and welcome to this second look exploring session looking at New Custom, a play from the early 1570s. Somewhere between 1570 and 1573, a bloke wrote a play, probably called New Custom. Could be known as New Guys when it was originally created, but when it was printed as New Custom. It is a morality play seemingly designed to be doubled down to 4 players. The doubling scheme, often when they say this can be easily played by 4, it's a lie. Often the printer just makes that up as a selling point, and the doubling makes no sense at all. But for this play, it actually works. We've already done a first look exploring session where we went through it with some discussion as we went along, but this is a second look, so we're going to go through it at pace, albeit after quite a long gap since the first look. It's been over a year. So those who were here the first time around, of which a couple, two of us, 3 of us have been here before. 3 of us have been here before, but we don't really remember very much about it. So, but also, if we find it is worth the effort, we will return to this for a second look, take 2, where we will do additional levels of acting. So we shall see if we do that in the foreseeable future before we put it down for further ongoing work, which is a more long-term process of working towards a full cast audio adaptation and or stage performances. The play can be found within a universe of performances and plays. It may have been performed close to Julian, the Love Feigned and Unfeigned. The Conflict of Conscience is within a year or 2 of this, as is, a few years later, The Glass of Government by George Gascoigne. And a few years earlier, we had Like Will to Like, one we can definitely recommend as one we enjoyed very much. You must now all take a drink, as I have mentioned its name. So, Like Will to Like, quoth the devil to the collier, and everybody drank. So, to give this play a run for its money, we have this wonderful team of readers. Reading today, Perverse Doctrine is...
I am Greg, and I'm really looking forward to this because this was my first ever play with Beyond Shakespeare way back when in April 2020. And I was New Custom that time, so it'd be fun playing Perverse Doctrine. And it's a fab name.
Reading New Custom this time around, and Avarice and Assurance is...
Liza Graham, newfangled, avaricious, assured, in London.
Reading Ignorance, Hypocrisy and Edification is...
Lynsey Beauchamp, ignorant, hypocritical, hoping for edification, from Kirkcaldy in Scotland.
And joining us to read the prologue, as well as playing Light of the Gospel, Cruelty and God's Felicity is...
Hello, Tom from Brighton, Cruelty.
Say this is our first run at a second look, so we're going to come at this with pace, but not necessarily with the full mechanics of going overboard. But everyone is allowed to play around with their parts and see what comes out. Switch on and off cameras if you so wish, but feel free to remain on if technical setup is just too confusing. All that remains, however, is for me to step aside and hand over the reins to the opening of the show, which starts with a prologue.
All things be not so as in sight they do seem, whatsoever they resemble, or whatever men deem. For in our senses, in their own objects us do fail, sometimes then our judgment shall be but little avail. In some things as such, where doubt giveth denial of them in the best wise to make any trial, which saying is evident as well shall appear in this little interlude which we present here, whereby we may learn how grossly we err, taking one thing for another, which differ so far as good doth from bad. Examples, therefore, you may take these persons, if you mark no more, from primitive constitution, which was first appointed even by God himself and by Christ his anointed, confirmed by the apostles of great antiquity. See how it is perverted by man's wicked iniquity. To be called new custom or new constitution, surely a name of too much ungodly abustion, which our author, indifferently scanning in his mind, in this simple opinion his cause he doth find, that by reason of ignorance, which beneath beareth great sway, and also stubborn doctrine, which shutteth the way to all good instruction and knowledge of right, no marvel it was, though of truth we were ignorant quite. For truly in such a case, the matter was but small to make the ignorant soul to credit them all, whatsoever they said, were it truth or a lie, for no man was able to prove them contrary. Wherefore their own fancies they set in great price, neglecting the true way like men far unwise, making semblant of antiquity in all that they did, to the intent that their subtlety by such means might be hid. New custom also hath his name, this matter verily, in consideration that the people so speaketh commonly, confuting the same by reasons most manifest, which in consequent order of talk are expressed. This sense hath our author followed herein, as we said, for other meaning. Moreover, he will not have it denayed, but diverse may invent such disdain from his, which in no wise he will have prejudice to his, nor his unto theirs, whatsoever they be. For many heads, many wits, we do plainly see. Only he desireth this of the worshipful audience, to take in good part without any manner of offence. More whatsoever shall be spoken, marking the intent, interpreting it in no otherwise but as it was meant. And for us, if our patience you list to attend, we are ready to declare you the matter to this end.
It is even so, indeed, the world was never in so evil a state, but there is no time for us of these matters to debate. It were good we invented some politic way our matters to address in good orderly stay, and for us reason would we look to ourselves. Do you not see how these new-fangled, prattling elves prink up so pertly of late in every place, and go about us ancients flatly to deface? As who should say in short time as well learned as we, as wise to the world, as good they might account it be. Nay, nay, if many years of grey hairs do no more, but that every peevish boy have even as much wit in store. By the mass, then, have I lived too long, and I would dead if I had not more knowledge than 1,000 of them in my head. For how should they have learning that were born but even now? As fit a sight as it were to see a goose shod or a saddled cow, as to hear the prattling of any such jack straw. For when ye have all done, I count him but a very door. As in London, not long since, you wot well where, they rang to a sermon, and we chanced to be there. Up sturt the preacher, I think not past 20 years old, with a sounding voice and audacity bold, and began to revile at the holy sacrament and transubstantiation. I never heard one knave or other make such a declaration, but if I had had the boy in a convenient place, with a good rod or twain not past 1 hour's space, I would so have scourged my merchant that his breech should ache. So long, pardon me, as it is since that he these words spake. What? Young men to be meddlers in divinity? 'Tis a goodly sight. Yet therein now almost is as every boy's delight. No book now in their hands, but all scripture, scripture. Either the whole Bible or the New Testament, you may be sure. The New Testament for them? And then oh, my dog. This is the old proverb, to cast pearls to an hog. Give them that which is meat for them, a racket and a ball, and some of the trifle to busy their heads withal, playing at quoits or 9 holes, or shooting at butts. There let them be, a God's name, to their hearts' ache and their guts. Let us alone with divinity, which are of riper age. Oh, youth is rash, they say, but old men have the knowledge. For while they read, they know not what, they admit the verity, and that is now the cause so many fall into heresy. Oh, every man have his own way, some that and some this. It would almost for anger, sir reverence, make a man to piss. Oh, to hear what they talk of in open communication. Surely I fear me ignorance, this gear will make some desolation.
I fear the same also. But as touching that whereof you speak full well, they have revoked divers old heresies out of hell, as against transubstantiation, purgatory, and the mass, and say that by scripture they cannot be brought to pass, but that whichever hath been a most true and constant opinion, and defended also hitherto by all of our religion, that I, ignorance, am the mother of true devotion, and knowledge the author of the contrary affection. They deny it so stoutly, as though it were not so. But this hath been believed many an 100 year ago, wherefore it grieveth me not a little that my case should so stand, thus to be disproved at every prattler's hand.
Yea, doth, and the more unwise man as I trow, for they say as much by me as you well do know. And shall I then go vex myself at their talk? No, let them speak so long as their tongues can walk. They shall not grieve me, for why, in very sooth, it were folly to endeavour to stop every man's mouth. They have brought in a young upstart lad, as it appears. I am sure he hath not been in the realm for very many years, with a gathered throck, a polled head, and a broad hat, an unshaved beard, a pale face, and he teacheth that all our doings are lords and have been many a day. He disalloweth our ceremonies and rites, and teacheth another way to serve God than that which we do use, and goeth about with the people's minds to seduce. It is a pestilent knave. He will have priest's no corner cap to wear. Surplices are superstition. Beads, paxes, and other such gear, crosses, bells, candles, oil, bran, salt, spettle, and incense with scenting and singing, he accounts not worth 3 halfpence, and cries out on them all, if to repeat them I wist, such holy things wherein our religion doth consist, but he commands, the service in English to be read, and for the holy ledger of the Bible to be put in his stead, every man to look thereon at his list and pleasure, every man to study divinity and at his convenient leisure, with 1,000 new guises more, you know as well as I, and to term him by his right name, if I should not lie, it is new custom. For so they do him call, both our sister, hypocrisy, superstition, idolatry, and all, and truly methinketh they do justly and wisely therein, since he is so diverse and lately crept in.
So they call him indeed, you have said right well, because he came newly from the devil of hell. New custom, quoth you, now a vengeance of his new nose, for bringing in any such unaccustomed glows. For he hath seduced the people by mighty great flocks. Body of God, it were to set the knaves in the stocks, or else to whip him for an example to all rogues as he, how they the authors of new heresies be, or henceforth do attempt any such strange devise. Let him keep himself from my hands, if he be wise. If ever I may take him within my reign, he is sure to have whipping there for his pain, for he doth much harm in each place throughout the land. Wherefore, perverse doctrine, here needeth your hand. I mean that you be diligent in any case, if ye fortune to come where new custom is in place, so to use the villain. You know what I mean, that in all points you may discredit him clean, and when he begins of anything for to clatter, of any controversy of learning or divinity matter, so to cling fast unto every man's thought, that his words may seem heresy, and his doings but naught.
Oh, tush, let me alone with that, for I have not so little wit, but I have practised this already, and mind also to do it. Yet a further device I have, I think not amiss. Hearken to me, ignorance, for the matter is this. For the better accomplishing our subtlety pretended, it were expedient that both our names were amended. Ignorance shall be simplicity, for that comes very nigh. And for perverse doctrine, I will be called sound doctrine, I. And now that we are both in such sort named, we may go in any place and never be blamed. See then you remember your name, Sir Simplicity, and me at every word sound doctrine to be. Beware of tripping, but look in mind that you bear your faded name and what before you were. But who is that hitherward doth walk? Let us stand still to hear what he will talk.
When I consider the ancient times before that have been these 800 years and more, and those confer with these our latter days, my mind do these displease 1,000 ways. For sure he that hath both perceived aright will say they differ as darkness doth from light. For then plain dealing bare away the prize. All things were ruled by men of good advice. Conscience prevailed much even everywhere. No man deceived his neighbor, and eke a thing full rare it was to find a man you might not trust. But look, what once they promised, they did that, well and just. If neighbors were at variance, they ran not straight to law. Days men took up the matter, and cost them not a straw. Such delight they had to kill debate and strife, and surely, even in those days, was there more godlier life. Howbeit, men of all ages are wonted to dispraise the wickedness of time that flourished at their days, as well he may discern, who for that but lightly looks in every leaf of almost all their books. And as for Christ our Master, what he thought of Jews, and after him the apostles, I think it is no news.
Hark, Simplicity, he is some preacher, I will lay my gown. He mindeth to make a sermon within this town. he speaketh honestly yet. But surely if he rail at me, I may not abide him by the mass, I promise thee.
Paul to the Corinthians plainly doth tell that their behaviour pleased him not well. All our forefathers likewise have been offended with divers faults at their time that might have been amended. The doctors of the church great fault they did find in that men lived not after their mind, first with the rulers as examples of sin, then with the people as continuing therein, so that of them both this one thing they thought, that the people were not good, but the rulers were not. But in comparison of this time of misery, in those days men lived in perfect felicity. St. Paul prophesied that worse times should ensue. In Novissimus Vedient Quidam, he saith, this is true. Following all mischief, ungodliness, and evil, leaning to all wickedness and doctrine of the devil. Spake ye not of these days? Think you, I pray. The proof is so plain that no man can deny. For this is sure that never in any age before naughtiness and sin have been practised more, or half so much, or at all in respect, so I say. And is now, God mend all, at this present day. Sin now no sin, faults no faults a whit. O God, seest thou this, and wilt suffer it? Surely thy mercy is great, but yet our sins, I fear, are so great that of justice with them thou canst not bear. Adultery no vice, it is a thing so rife, a stale jest to lie now with another man's wife. For what is that but dalliance? Covetousness they call good husbandry, when one man would fain have all. And eke alike to that is unmerciful extortion, a sin in sight of God of great abomination. For pride, that is now a grace. For round about the humble spirit it is termed a fool or a lout. Whoso will be so drunken that he scarcely knoweth his way, oh, he's a good fellow, so nowadays they say. Gluttony is hospitality, while they meat and drink spill, which would relieve divers whom famine doth kill. As for all charitable deeds, they be gone, God knoweth. Some pretend lack, but the chief cause is sloth, a vice most outrageous to all others, sure right hateful to God and contrary to nature. Scarce blood is punished, but even for very shame, so make they of murder but a trifling game. Oh, how many examples of that horrible vice do daily among us now spring and arise. But thanks be to God that such rulers doth send, which earnestly study that fault to amend, as by the sharp punishment of that wicked crime we may see that committed was but of late time. God direct their hearts, they may always continue such just execution on sin to ensue. So shall be saved the life of many a man, and God will withdraw his sore plagues from us then. Theft is but policy, perjury but a face, so is now the world, so far men be from grace. But what shall I say of religion, and knowledge of God, which hath been indifferent in each age before this? Howbeit his faults then it had, and in some points then was culpable and bad, surely this one thing I may say aright. God hath rejected us, away from him quite, and given us up wholly unto our own thought, utterly to destroy us and bring us to naught. For do they not follow the inventions of men? Look on the primitive church, and tell me then whether they served God in this same wise, or whether they followed any other guise. For since God's fear decayed and hypocrisy crept in hope of some gains and lucre to win, Cruelty bare a stroke, who with faggot and fire brought all things to pass that he did desire. Next Avarice split all, which, lest it should be spied, Hypocrisy ensued the manner to hide. Then brought they in their monsters, their masses, their light, their torches at noon to darken our sight, their popes and their pardons, their purgatories for souls, their smoking of the church and flinging of coals.
Stay yet a while, and let us hear more communication.
Cannot, by God's soul, if I might have all this nation, should I suffer a knave thus to rail and brag? Then I pray God the devil may break my paint. I will be revenged ere he depart away. Sirrah, you have made a fair speak here today. Do you look for any reward for your deed? It were good to beat thee till thy head bleed, or to scourge thee well favouredly at a cart's tail, to teach such an whoreson to blaspheme and rail at such holy mysteries and matters so high as thou speakest of now and railedst at so lately.
What mean ye, sir, or to whom do you speak? Art ye minded your anger on me for to wreak, which have not offended, as far as I know?
I speak to thee, knave. Thou art mad, I trow. What meanest thou to rail right now so contemptuously at the chiefest secrets of all divinity?
Verily, I railed not so far as I can tell. I spake but advisedly, I know very well. For I will stand to it, whatever I said.
Wilt thou so? But I will make thee well apay to recant thy words. I hold thee a pound before thou departs hence out of this ground.
No, that you shall not do, if I die therefore.
Oh, thou shalt see anon. Go to, prattle no more, but tell me the effect of the words which were said.
To recite them again I am not afraid. I said that the Mass, and such trumpery as that, popery, purgatory, pardons, were flat against God's word and primitive constitution, crept in through covetousness and superstition, of late years through blindness and men of no knowledge, even such as have been in every age.
Oh, now, precious whoreson, thou hast made a lie. How canst thou prove that? Tell me by and by.
It needeth small proof. The effect doth appear. And neither this is any place for to argue here. And as for my saying, I hold the negative. It lieth upon you to prove the affirmative, to show that such things were used in antiquity, and then I can easily prove you the contrary.
Oh, standst thou with me on school points? Dost thou so indeed? Thou hadst best to prove me whether I can read. Thinkest thou I have no logic? Indeed, thinkest thou so? Yes, princocks that I have. For 40 years ago I could smatter in a dun's prettily, I do not jest. Better I am sure than 100 of you, whosoever is the best.
Truly, I believe you. For in such fond books you spent idly your time and wearied your looks. More better it had been in books of holy scripture, whereas virtue is expressed and religion pure, to have passed your youth as the Bible and such, than in these times, than in these trifles, to have dolted so much, not more to have regarded a dunce or a questionist, than you would the words of the holy evangelist.
What? For a child to meddle with the Bible?
Yea, surely, more better than so to be idle.
Is study then idleness? That is a new term.
They say better to be idle than to do harm.
What harm doth knowledge? I pray thee tell me.
Knowledge puffeth up, in St. Paul you may see.
Oh, yea, but what knowledge meaneth he? Tell me that.
Even such knowledge as ye profess flat, for the truth and the gospel you have in contempt, and follow such toys as yourselves do invent, forsaking God's laws and the apostles' institution in all your proceedings and manners of religion.
What speakest thou that? Let me hear thy judgment.
Not by any guess, but by that which is evident. As for the scriptures, you have abolished clean new fashions you have constitute in religion. Again, abuse of the sacraments than hath been heretofore have you brought, and in number have you made them more than Christ ever made. Wherefore show your authority, or else ye have done to the church great injury. The apostles never taught your transubstantiation of bread into flesh any such fashion. Howbeit they were conversant every day and hour, and received that sacrament of Christ, our Saviour. You feign also that Peter was Bishop of Rome, and that he first instituted the seat of your popedom. But perverse nation, how dare you for shame your fancies on Christ and the apostles to frame?
Oh, marry, avaunt, Jack Sauce, a prattling knave! I will conjure thy coat, if thou leave not to rave. With all my heart and a vengeance come up and me naught. I see we shall have a heretic of thee as I thought. These things were approved ere thou wast born. Dost thou not see? And shall be when thou art hanged, I warrant thee.
Ere I was born? Nay, sure, that is not true, for in comparison of me they be but new.
See? What of thee? Thou art mad.
Surely in my sort I am sober and sad.
Why? How old art thou? Tell me, I pray thee heartily.
Elder than you, I perceive.
What, older than I? The young knave by the mass, not full 30, would be elder than I, that am above 60.
1,500, that surely is my age. Ask and inquire of all men of knowledge.
1,000 years? God's precious soul, I am out of my wits. He is possessed of some devil of some spirits. Why, thou art a young knave of that sort, I say, that brought into this realm but the other day this new learning, and these heresies, and such other things mo, with strange guises invented not long ago. I pray thee, tell me, is not thy name New Custom?
Truly, so I am called of some, as of such as want both wit and understanding, as you do now, I know by your talking. But woe be to those that make no distinction between many things of diverse condition, as naught to be good, and hot to be cold, and old to be new, and new to be old. Wherefore these deceits you daily invent, the people to seduce unto your advertisement. While with tales you essay, and with lies you begin, the truth to deface and your credit to win.
What is thy name, then? I pray thee make declaration.
In faith, my name is Primitive Constitution.
Who? Who? Brava Constitutio? Even so, I thought I wished that it was some such thing of naught. Like lettuce, like lips. A scabbard horse for a squire.
Primitive Constitution, I said, if you hear. Such orders as in the primitive church heretofore were used, but not now, the more pity, therefore.
It's a good time, sir. Well, might you fare? Primitive Constitution, that is your true name, you say, without all delusion. Oh, Primitive Constitution, quodst thou as much as my sleeve, the devil on him which will such lies believe. For my part, if I credit such an hairy now, the foul fiend of hell fetch me, body and soul.
Truth cannot prevail where ignorance is in place.
Peace, or I will lay my beads on thy face. Hast thou nothing to rail at but ignorance, I trow?
You may use me even at your pleasure, I know, for perverse doctrine that is rooted so fast that it may not be changed at no heavenly blast, may not hear the contrary, but beginneth to kick like a jade when he feeleth the spur for to prick.
Yea, sayest thou so, the miscreant villain? A little thing would make me knock out thy brain. Hence, out of my sight away, packing trudge, thou detestable heretic, thou caitiff, thou drudge. If I may take thee, it were as good thou were dead, for even with this porters I will batter thy head. Though I hang, therefore I care not, so I be revenged on a slave ere I die. Sacrament of God! Who hath heard such a knave, who after he had done at ignorance to rave, perverse doctrine, quod he, is also rooted so fast that he may be changed by no heavenly blast. No, God's soul, I warrant him, I will see him rotten. Before that my doctrine I shall have forgotten, wherefore it behoveth us some counsel to take, how we the stronger our matters may make, against the surprise of this new invasion begun of late by this strange generation of new custom and his makes, meaning to deface our ancient rites and religion and to place their devilish doctrine, the gospel, and so our gains to debate and ourselves to undo. I think it were best, therefore, that our sister Hypocrisy do understand fully of this matter by and by. Let us go and seek her, the case for to show that we her goodly counsel may speedily know.
I am ready. In following, I will not be slow.
Doubt you nothing at all, for God will so provide, who leaveth not his elect to defend and guide. And whatever I come, such glance you may find, as shall in each point content well your mind. And admit that they call you new custom, what then? Attribute that folly to ignorance of men, that follows their fancies and know not the right. Well, you know where I come once, the light of the gospel, whose beams do glister clear, then to primitive constitution in each place you appear. And as elsewhere you have been, so do not mistrust, but in this place thereafter be received you must.
According to your nature, so do you very well to put me in good hope, bright light of the gospel. Seeing you be true, I may in no wise misdeem you the father or author of lies. For if trust to the gospel do purchase perpetuance of life unto him who therein hath confidence, what shall the light do whose beams be so bright, that in each respect all things else of light are but very darkness and eke terrestrial? So the light of the gospel overshineth them all. Wherefore with great comfort I receive your counsel with hearty thanks unto you, the light of the gospel.
Do so, and by faith then thou shall you obtain whatsoever you desire. The scriptures saith plain, for quidquid pertis non nomine meae. It must of truth needs to be understood so, that without faith, whatsoever we fortune to crave, we may not look for it our desire to have. Faith moveth mountains, so it be pure faith indeed. By faith we obtain whatsoever we need. Then faith shall restore to you more things than this. Believe me, primitive constitution, whatsoever is amiss, but where be those reprobates, devoid of all grace, who lately misused you, and as you said, in this place?
They be suddenly departed, I wot not well whither, for I left them right now both here together. They cannot be far hence, I know very well. Where they be, there is none, if we ask but can tell.
Do you them again, if you meet them aright?
Yea, sir, that I do, even at the first sight.
Then let us not tarry, go seek them straight.
At hand I am ready, on you for to wait.
Perverse doctrine, I say take heed in any sort, that thou never believe whatsoever they report. Though they of the gospel never so much do preach, every man will not credit whatsoever they teach. They will not say, all believe, when they do not, I promise thee. For that time will never come into this world. Trust me, tush, be thou busied in any case, to discredit their preaching in every place. If they teach them one thing, then teach thou the contrary. And if that no scripture for thy place thou have ready, in words that supply, which wanteth in reason, for ill things applied sometime in good season, as of better eftsoons do import the weight, so they be well ordered by good policy and sleight. Howbeit their doctrine be sound, yet their vices find out, as this is a sloven, or this is a lout, he speaketh on envy, such a one for need. This saith it in words, but he thinketh not in deed. Upon greater occasion they stick not to rave, saying, this is a whoremaster villain, he an heretic knave, an extortioner, a thief, a traitor, a murderer, a covetous person, a common usurer. This he doth for my mistress his wife's sake, by the rood, the better to maintain and support the French hood. Remember also that it were a great shame for thee to have forgotten thy own name. Perverse doctrine of right must the truth so pervert that he never let it sink into any man's heart, as far as he can, with diligence withstand. For ever it behoveth thee to be ready at hand, to strengthen thine own parts, and disprove other doctrine. Whatsoever shall be taught that is contrary to thine, still pretend religion, whatsoever you say, and that shall get thee good credit alway, pleasing the multitude with such kind of gear as with them, to the which most inclined they are. Square caps, long gowns with tippets of silk, brave copes in the church, surplices as white as milk, beads and such like, all these bear the price. To these things apply thy attendant device, and other likewise, which well you do know, which all of great holiness do set forth a show. Though some of them doubtless be indifferent, what matter? They furnish our business, never the latter. For these of antiquity, since that they do smell, our cause must commend right wonderful well. And these be the things whereof thou hast need, the better of thy will and purpose to speed. Then give thy attendance, and so be sure of this, that I will be ready, and never will miss, to assist thee still in working thy purpose, to the advancing of thee, and depressing thy foes.
Mercy, good sister, even with all my heart, for this your good counsel. And for my part, whatsoever in this case may be possibly done, I shall follow your precepts as a natural son. For the matter so stands, if we look not well about, that we quite perish all out of doubt, unless some such way we take out of hand, whereby we may be able to, whereby we may be able our foes to withstand. And for this cause, my brother Ignorance and I, lest it should chance us to fall into jeopardy, though envy of our names in any man's ear. For this intent, I say, we did diligently care our names to counterfeit in such manner of sort, that wherever we go, we may win good report.
Of my faith, that is very well done indeed. God send thee a good wit still at thy need, and that in thy doings such success thou mayst find, that all things may chance to thee after thy mind. My brother, if thou have aught else to say, speak on, ere that I depart hence away.
Great thanks for your counsel, and if you chance to go thither, you may meet with Ignorance to hasten him hither.
Farewell. He shall be here, you shall see, even anon.
Oh, alack, alack, now my good sister is gone, whose presence to enjoy is more pleasant unto me than anything whatsoever in the world could be. Good occasion have I such a sister to embrace, for by her means I live and enjoy this place, which yet I possess as long as I may, and have heretofore many a fair day. For since these new heretics, the devil take them all, in all the corners began to bark and to bawl at the Catholic faith and the old religion, making of them both but matters of derision. Hypocrisy have so helped at every need that but for her hardly were to like for to speed. For be our case never so nigh driven to the worst, though her means by some means take no place at the first, yet some means doth she find by some means at the length, that her ways do prevail and her matters get strength. She can find 1,000 guiles in a trice, for every purpose and new strong device. No matter so difficile for man to find out, no business so dangerous, no person so stout. But on the one side she is able a solution to make, and the other's great peril and mood for to slake. And in fine, much matter in few words to contain, she can find out a cloak for every reign. What person is there that beareth more sway in all manner of matters at this present day? Throughout the whole world, though of simple degree, and of small power to sight she seem for to be. Consider all trades and conditions of life, then shall you perceive that hypocrisy is rife to all kind of men, and of every age, so far as their years them therein may give knowledge. Lo, here a large field where at length he may walk, who list of this matter of the fool for to talk, to declare of what power and of what efficacy in every age, country, and time is hypocrisy. But I may not about such small points now stand, the affairs they be greater that I have in hand. Ignorance is the cause that I so long tarry here, and behold where the blind buzzard doth appear. Come on, thou gross-headed knave, thou horse and ass, I say, where hast thou been since we departed today?
Where have I been, quoth you? Marry, even there I was, whereas I would have given £100 by the mass to have been here. For never since the day I was born was I so near hand in pieces for to have been torn. For as I was going up and down in the street to see if I could with hypocrisy meet, behold, afar off I begin to espy that heretic new custom with another in his company. As soon as they saw me, they hied them apace, came towards, and met me full in the face. I am glad we found you then, quod this heretic knave, for you and your fellow this day sought we have in every place, and now cannot you fly. And with these words both they came very nigh, whereat I so feared, I may tell you plain, that I thought at that hour I should have been slain. This is he, quod the varlet, of whom I told you of late, an enemy of the truth, and incensed with hate against God and his church, and an imp of hypocrisy, a foe to the gospel and to true divinity. Thou liest, heretic, quod I, and naught else could I say, but break quickly from them, and hither came away.
Who is he that was with him? Simplicity, canst thou tell?
Not I sure, but some call him the light of the gospel.
Oh,
A good personable fellow, and in countenance so bright that I could not behold him in the visage aright.
God's precious wounds, that slave! Oh, marry, fie on him, fie! Body of our Lord, is he come into the country? I think what the heretics in the world have taken in hand by some solemn oath to pester this land with their wicked schisms and abominable sects. Now vengeance on them all, and the devil break their necks. Light of the gospel! light of a straw. Yet whatever he be, I would he were hanged as high as I can see.
What have you heard of him before this?
Heard of him? Oh, yea, that if I often hear wis. If there be any in the world, it is this horse and thief. Believe me, simplicity, that will work us the mischief. Have that same new Jack got him such a mate? Now with all my heart a pestilence on his pate. And they were both hanged fairly together, or else were it the devil, I care not much whether. For since these Genevan doctors came so fast into this land, since that time it was never merry with England. First came ye custom, and he gave me the onsay, and citizens' things have gone worse every day. But simplicity, dost thou know what is mine intent?
Tell me, and I shall know what you have meant.
Our matters with Cruelty our friends to discuss, and to hear him what counsel in this case he will give us. And this is the cause I have tarried for thee, because that to him I would have thee go with me. But see where he cometh, with Avarice sadly walking. Let us listen if we can, whereof they be talking.
Nay, by God's heart, if I might do what I list, not one of them, all that should scape my fist. His nails, I would plague them one way or another. I would not miss him, no, if he were my own brother. With small faults I might bear as a sore occasion, and punish or forgive at my own discretion. For what that some think the wisest may fall, but heresy, fie on that. That is the greatest of all. Every stock should be full, every prison and jail should some would I beat with rods, some scourge at a cart's tail, some hose their heels upward, some beat with a sack, some manacle their fingers, some bind in the rack, some I would starve for hunger, some I would hang privily, saying that themselves so die desperately. Some would I accuse of matters of great weight, openly to hang them as trespassers straight. 1,000 more ways could I tell, and not miss, which here in England I may say, you know, I have practised ere this, and trust by his wounds Avarice soon again for to try, howsoever the world go, before that I die.
Now will I tell thee, Cruelty, by God's sacrament I have swore, it were pity but thou wert hanged before.
I had as lief they were hanged as I. By the mass, there is something makes me laugh heartily.
I pray thee, what is that?
What? I cannot tell for laughing. I will never better pastime desire than to hear a dozen of them howling together in the fire, whose noise, as methinketh, I would best compare to a cry of hounds following after a hare, or a rabblement of Bangkoks barking at a bear.
I beshrew thy knave's fingers with my very heart. The devil will reward thee, whose darling thou art. But, sirrah, I pray thee, if it had chanced me in these days in thy hands to have fell, I think sure thou wouldst have ordered me well.
His blood, I would I might have once seen that chance. I would have vexed thee with a vengeance for old acquaintance.
Why so? I was always thy furtherer in those days, I am sure.
Yea, but what was the cause? Thine own profit to procure? For so that thou mightst vantage and lucre obtain, thou wouldst not stick to bring thine own brother to pain.
No, nor father and mother, if there were aught to be got. Thou mightst swear, if I could, I would bring them to the pot. Whereof a like history I shall tell thee, Cruelty, in England, which myself played in the days of Queen Mary. 2 brothers there were dwelling, young gentlemen, but the heir had substantial revenues, his stock was also fair. A man of good conscience and studious of the gospel, which the other brother, perceiving very well, persuaded him by all means, since he was so bent, to be constant in opinion, and not to relent. Which done, he gave notice to the officers about, how they should come with search to find his brother out, who, when he once was in this sort apprehended, shortly after his life in the fire he ended. The other had the most part of all his living. How sayest thou, Sir Knave, is this not the near way to thriving?
Oh, unreasonable avarice, unsatiable with gain.
What of this? Tush, it was but a merry train.
For Lucas' sake, his own brother to betray? Hence, Judas, with these doings I cannot away.
I was ever with him, still ready at hand, continually suggesting of the house and the land. And yet, to tell you the truth, as indeed the thing is, of my conscience, I think the best part was his.
By God's glorious wounds, he was worthy of none, but thou to be whipped for thy greedy suggestion.
Heart of God, man, be the means better or worse, I pass not I, so it be good for the purse.
If you love the purse so well, Avarice, as you say indeed, then help me with your counsel now to needs.
What, perverse doctrine and ignorance, too, were you both so near? Ha! We had thought at our coming that no man had been here.
We have been in this place ever since that you stayed, and we have heard also whatsoever you have said.
Welcome both, on my faith, and I am glad it was our chance to meet with you here, perverse doctrine and ignorance. Why, how goeth the world? Methinks you be sad.
Oh, Mary, God have mercy, but there is a small cause to be glad. For except you come speedily with your helping hand, no doubt we shall shortly be banished the land.
Ooh, why so, perverse doctrine?
I pray thee, let me understand.
Why so? You know, how since heresy came lately in place, and new custom, that vile schismatic, began to deface all our old doings, our service or rights that of yore have been of great price in the old time before. Ourselves have been enforced almost for to fly the country, or else covertly in some corner to lie.
By the mass, that is true, for I dare not appear. Whosoever would give me £20 lands by the year.
By God's foot, and I was never in better case in my life, for covetousness with the clergy was never so rife. Wherefore I have no cause in such sort to be grieved. Yet I would I could tell, sirs, how you might be relieved.
Now, sirrah, to mend up this matter withal, precious God, it frets me to the very gall. For now, of late, that slave, that varlet, that heretic, light of the gospel, is come over the sea as some credibly tell whom new custom doth use in all matters as a staying, the most enemy to us in the world away, whose rancour is such and so great is his spite that no doubt he will straightway banish us quite, unless we provide some remedy for the contrary, and with speed. This is the truth that I tell thee, Cruelty.
His wounds, heart and blood, is he come without any nay?
Yea, verily, for with these eyes I saw him today.
Now, I would he were here. I would so dress the slave, that I warrant he should bear me a mark to his grave. First, I would buffet him thus, then give him a fall. Afterwards I will dash out his brains at the wall.
Oh, hold your hands, you rude knave. By God's body I swear I will quickly fetch my fist from your ear.
Ah, tush, tush! It avails naught to chafe or to chide, but more wisdom with speed some redress to provide.
Redress. Now, by God's guts, I will never stay till I find means to rid the beast out of the way. I will cut him off the slam butts. I'll hold him a crown wheresoever I meet him in country or town.
What order you will take, it were best make relation, for more wits, as you know, may do better than one.
I will do then whatsoever shall come in my head. I force not, so the villain were dead.
And of my furtherance, whatsoever I may do, you be sure your good state again, if I can, to procure, with my uttermost help, to suppress yonder rascal, for by the mass, you papists, I like best of all.
And can we not do amiss, I conjecture lightly? For whereas all these come, perverse doctrine, avarice, ignorance, and cruelty, there goeth the hair, except all good luck go away. But, sirs, it is good lest your names you descry to transpose them after some other kind, else be sure with the people much hatred to find. As for perverse doctrine, sound doctrine; for ignorance, simplicity. With their colours of late ourselves cloaked have we.
What then shall I, cruelty, be called in your judgment?
Justice with severity, a virtue most excellent.
Oh, what will you term avarice? I pray you let me hear.
Mm. 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 Even frugality, for that virtue it cometh most near.
Content, by zoons. Aye, but we must look to our feet, lest we stumble in these names whensoever we meet.
Yea, see you take heed to that in any matter of case, so you may delude the people in every place.
Come then, it is hence that away we depart.
We are ready to follow with a most willing heart.
Oh, but sirs, because we have tarried so long, if you be good fellows, let us part with a song.
I am pleased, and therefore let every man follow after in order as well as he can. Well handled. By the mass on every side, come Avarice, for we too will no longer abide.
Farewell to you both, and God send you success, such as may glad us all in your present busyness. Now they be departed, and we may not tarry, for it lieth us upon all to be stirring by Saint Mary. New custom prevaileth much everywhere, but no matter, they be fools that give him such ear. Let old custom prevail rather, it is better than new. This all will confess that think Scripture is true. Do as thy fathers have done before thee, quoth he, then shalt thou be certain in the right way to be. And sure that 'tis better than to follow the train that each man inventeth of his own proper brain, which hath brought the world to this case, as we see, that every day we hear of some notorious heresy. Yet all is the gospel whatsoever they say. Well, if it chance that a dog hath a day, woe then to new customs, and then all his mates tush tush. No man the gospel will esteem then a rush. What will that other heretic do? Light of the gospel, I pray. Dare not one show his face more than we at this day. But come, ignorance, let us follow after a pace, for we have abidden all too long in this place.
Let us go then, but by the mass, I am vengeance dry. I pray, let us drink at the alehouse nearby.
Content in favour with speed, let us hie.
They be not this way as far as I can see, unless they have hidden themselves up privily. For in presence of the light of the gospel and primitive constitution, undoubtedly such reprobates can have no habitation.
Verily, I do find it so, even as you have said, for at your sight they all fly away as dismayed. Wherefore I have great cause to give you thanks, light of the gospel that put thus mine enemies to flight.
Nay, they be my enemies also, that be enemies to you, insomuch as your dealings be both virtuous and true. For what is the gospel else, whereof I am light, both truth, equity, verity, and right. They be enemies to God too, and all liars impure, insomuch as he is called verity in the scripture, and the lying lips with speakers of vanity, the Lord himself with revenge with extremity. But see, what is that approacheth so nigh?
Of whom I told you, it is perverse doctrine, verily.
Then let us a little step out the way, if haply we may hear what he will say.
Ah, sirrah, by my troth, there is a very good vein. Ignorance have well lined his cap for the rain. I could have tarried longer there with good will, but as the proverb saith, it is good to keep still one head for the reckoning, both sober and wise. For in this thing I have followed that guise. Ignorance is but a dolt. It is I that must drudge, for need, they say, maketh the old wife and man both to trudge. Such snares we shall lay for these heretics, I trust, that new custom and his fellows shall soon lie in the dust. If cruelty may prevail, he will never slack, till he hath brought 1,000 of them to a stake. Avarice I promised to do what in him lay, who hath been in great credit with the world alway. But if ignorance may get place, there shall we do well. That adieu all idle heretics and vain talk of the gospel. For me, perverse doctrine, this shall be my fetch, to keep constant the minds of all I can catch, lest these glozers sometime they give chance to hear preaching, and thereby be converted and credit their teaching. For I trust shortly to bring it to pass that less knowledge of the gospel shall serve by the mass.
Let us enclose him, that he may not fly. Else will he be gone when he doth us espy. O imp of Antichrist, and seed of the devil, born to all wickedness and nuzzled in all evil.
Nay, thou stinking heretic! Art thou there indeed? According to thy naughtiness, thou must look for to speed.
God's holy word in no wise can be heresy, though so you term it, never so falsely.
Oh, ye precious whoreson, art thou there too? I think you have pretended some harm me to do. Help! Help! I dare say, let me be gone at once, as I will smite thee in the face with my fist for God's bones.
You must be contented a little season to stay. Light of the gospel for your profit hath something to say.
I will hear none of your proceedings, I promise you plain, for whatsoever you speak, it is but vain.
In vain it shall not be spoken, I know very well, for God hath always given such power to his gospel. What that wherever or by whom declared it to be, it should redound unto his own honour and glory. God is glorified in those whom he doth elect. God is glorified in those also whom he doth reject. The elected are saved by that in the world they believe, but the other, because no credence they give to the truth, cannot be but blamable, committing a fault of all faults most damnable. For sid ad ios non viesum, said Christ our Saviour, if I had not come unto them with the word, this is sure. In far better case the unfaithful have been, for in this one respect they had no sin. But where the truth is, and yet their contemned of Christ his own mouth, all such are condemned. Thus the gospel of Christ, be it received or no, showeth the glory of God wherever it so go.
I were content to abide and know your pleasure, but for business at this time I have no leisure.
What leisure ought a man at all times more to have than to endeavour both his body and soul for to say?
For that care, all other cares must we set aside.
Say on then, for patiently I mind to abide.
Not to hear what is spoken is only sufficient, but to practice but to put it in practice with sincere intent, whatsoever is taught us concerning good doing, expressing it plainly in our virtuous living.
Why, what would you have me in living express?
Even the gospel, which is nothing else, doubtless, but amended of life and resounding of sin, renouncing of sin, with displeasure towards yourself for the faults were you in.
How shall I displease myself in sin, I would know?
In considering that nothing bringeth man so low, out of our God's favour as sin, nothing setteth him so high, as loathing the same and calling to him for his mercy.
Verily, I am sorry for my forepast demeanour, but that cannot avail me but little, I am sure.
Why think thou so? Boldly tell me your mind.
Because God's mercy is far enough behind.
God's mercy is at hand if you repent faithfully.
I repent my sins, and for them I'm sorry heartily. But how shall I be sure for mercy to obtain?
Credit me truly, for my words are not in vain. I am light of the gospel and have full authority to pronounce to the pertinent forgiveness of iniquity, so that in asking you put your assurance to speed, then no doubt you have obtained mercy indeed.
This assurance, how cometh it? Declare, I pray you.
In thinking that Christ, his words and promises are true, and as he cannot deceive, so cannot be deceived, which faith of all Christians must needs be received.
What thing is faith? I pray you recite.
A substance of things not appearing in sight, yet which we look for so St. Paul doth define to the Hebrews, the 11th chapter and the first line.
How to purchase this faith, I would I could tell.
Certainly, by me also, the light of the gospel, for faith cometh by the word, when we read or hear, as by the same St. Paul it doth plainly appear.
Give me leave then to embrace you, I pray you heartily.
With all my very heart I receive you courteously.
To thee I give most humble thanks, O God immortal, that it hath pleased thee from my wickedness to call, and whereas I deserved no mercy but judgment, yet to pour down thy pardon on me most abundant, revoking me from reprobates and members of hell, to win me in society with the light of the gospel.
Stand up. There is somewhat else yet behind.
I wholly yield myself to you, use me after your mind.
Perverse doctrine, you shall be called no more after this, but sincere doctrine, as now I trust your true name is.
By God's grace, while I live, I will so endeavour that my life and my name may accord thus forever.
Then all wicked company you must clean forsake, and fly the society as a toad or a snake.
I abandon them quite, whatsoever they be.
Well, sincere doctrine, hearken also unto me, whom needs you must follow if you will do well, since you have embraced the light of the gospel. I am not new custom as you have been misled, but am primitive constitution from the very head of the church, which is Christ, and his disciples all, and from the fathers at that time taking original. By me then you must learn for your own behest, and for all vocations what is judged the best.
I receive you gladly with thanks for your gentleness, at your hands craving earnestly for my trespass forgiveness.
It is easily forgiven.
Now, as touching my apparel, what counsel do you give? For I see well that in the constitution primitive they use no such garments as I have on here, but fashioned it after some other manner.
So did they, truly, I confess it indeed. But in such things a man ought not to take so great heed, for the wearing a gown, cap, or any other garment, surely is a matter as meseemeth indifferent. Howbeit wise princes for a difference to be had hath commanded the clergy in such sort to be clad. But he who puts his religion in wearing the thing, or thinks himself more holy for the contrary doing, shall prove but a fool, of whatever condition he be, for sure that is but mere superstition. Other things there be which have been abused tolerable enough if well they were used, wherefore use your apparel as is comely and decent, and not against Scripture anywhere in my judgment.
No, sure, for God weigheth not who is a sprite of any vesture or outward appearance a mite. So the conscience be pure, and to no sin a slave. That is all which he is most gladly would have.
Well, these having declared and sufficiently taught, and I trust on your part perceived as they ought, by your patience, I mind to depart for a season.
If your business be so, it is but your reason.
With great thanks unto you, light of the gospel, for the gentleness I have found, at your hands as of due desert I am bound.
The Lord be your guide, whithersoever you depart.
Humble thanks, sir, I yield to you from the bottom of my heart. Albeit in this part so small be my skill, that I may not perform them according to my will.
The peace of God be with you both evermore.
Wheresoever light of the gospel goeth before, there I, edification, do follow incontinent, as unto the same and necessary consequent. For though the letter always work not that effect, yet surely in the congregation of God's elect, where the light and force taketh place, there edification of all right must I make my habitation. Endeavour then always me to retain, so shall your doctrine not be given in vain.
I receive you most gladly, and I trust in the Lord that forever, hereafter we shall well accord.
I trust so.
Fare you well, now you are not alone. For this small while I must needs be gone. Here, take at my hands this testament book, and in mine absence therein I pray you earnestly look.
Your commandment shall be done with thanks for your counsel.
Then shall ye sure find great delight in the gospel.
Edification without assurance vaileth not so much. Yet where they both do meet, surely their force is such that to God's kingdom they open the way, the sweet place of rest and perpetual joy. For assurance in Christ Jesus without man's further merit is fully sufficient God's favour to inherit. Wherefore light of the gospel willed me so that to you edification with all speed I should go, so that with sincere doctrine we joined in unity might in short time conduct him to God's perfect felicity.
I embrace you assurance that bliss to obtain.
Then be you assured that you shall not be vain. For if that Christ's words be faithful and just, God's perfect felicity is not far hence, I trust.
Sorry, am I lost?
God's felicity cannot be lost.
He is, he is.
Last page.
Here I am. Thank you. Verily, where edification and assurance is one and all are allied, God's felicity is at hand. It may not be denied, which he promiseth to such unfeignedly craved, where assurance that certainly the same they shall have, which felicity in person here I do represent, who by God himself to the faithful am sent, prepared for them as he plainly hath said, since the time that the world's foundation were laid. Wherefore great thanks unto him doubtless you owe, that it would please him such gifts on you to bestow. The most precious thing which man's reason doth excel, no mind can conceive, much less tongue can tell.
To him, therefore, let us give all manner praise, that beareth such affection to mankind always. O Lord, thine honour might be great in heaven so high, and throughout the whole earth thy everlasting glory. Give grace to thy people, that after this transitory life they may come to perfect felicity.
Defend thy church, O Christ, and thy holy congregation, both here in England and in every other nation, that we thy truth may attain and still follow the same, to the salvation of our souls and glory of thy name.
Preserve our noble Queen, Elizabeth, and her council all with thy heavenly grace, sent from thy seat supernal. Grant her and them long to live, her to reign, them to see, what may always be best for the weal public's commodity.
Agnus Dei, quid
Don't be a
tollis.
heretic. So, thus concluding that beautiful second song, we come to the end of this this thing, that we have here. I mean, it's unusual for a morality play for the vice figure to convert. I mean, that's the unique thing. I think it's unique. I don't think there's any other play that actually does this. It might have a sort of everyman type figure who is led to sin and then drawn away again. But actually, no, Perverse Doctrine is, in a sense, the central figure. The title New Custom is a bit of a red herring. It's there to teach you to not be Catholic in a way that is completely non-ecumenical. It manages to throw in some random anti-Semitism for no readily apparent reason.
Yeah.
Is not an easy pill to swallow. That one was definitely hard work.
Yeah.
Well done, everyone. By the way, I thought you were trying to breathe life into material work. yeah, this is...
Found the dead horse and I'm flogging it tonight, I think was the phrase. I mean, it's funny because I look at this and I'm going, so this was the first thing I ever read with this group.
How did you stay with us, Greg?
I don't know, for a start. But actually, I'm looking at it going, so many things that I now see as being tropes and things that we've seen so often. And at this point, I would have been going, what's going on? Like the name changes, which actually are probably the best bit of the whole play. I'm sorry, I'm going to be very cruel there, but I enjoyed the scenes where we gave out new names. Yeah, because they're fun.
But it's weird because they're used here just because that's what vices do. And then they don't use them in any way in the play at all. I mean, it is just like this dead convention that people are just doing because that's what you do in a morality play. But it actually has no bearing on anything at all.
No, it's a hard play. I found Perverse Doctrine just annoyed me by the end of it because there's no journey for that conversion. He just literally, to me, it seemed like, 1 minute I'm being really rude about everybody, and then the next minute I'm being all nice and all wonderful about it. Unless he throws a disguise off, it's just like, yeah.
Is it literally the moment gospel appears, or was it mid-flow? I mean, if it's the gospel appeared and you just went, shines a light in your face, and you're on the road to Damascus, but it doesn't really happen like that, does it?
No.
I was waiting all the time for Perverse Doctrine just to go, yeah, boo sucks, or words to that effect, and really come back with some slaying lines, but he just got converted.
Yeah. Nothing happened.
And there is no conflict, really, between the two sides. They vaguely spar for a bit, but it doesn't really go anywhere, and then he just converts.
Unless that second song is Perverse Doctrine singing something really dodgy that reveals all to be false, but I can't see that happening.
No, and the thing is, it's really long for a play that does, a lot of moral interludes are quite short. They're about half the length of this, or less than this. This takes an awfully long time. And I was sitting there going, well, we this is a very difficult show to sell as a show, unless, I mean, actually, no, I tell a lie. I definitely think there is an audience for this, and I definitely think there are funders for this. I just don't want to get into bed with either of them. But there are people who absolutely would lap this up. But I was thinking, well, okay, if we're doing a show where we're playing around with moralities, and we might do the first half, we do some context laying, and the second half we do a cut down version of this show, and I'm sort of going, yeah, but once you start, where do you stop?
There's not even a scene that I was going, this scene's great, I just cut it out and use it somewhere. There's nothing like that. Usually there's at least a scene where you think, oh, this is really fab, we could borrow this and use it. There's nothing in there for me. It was just like...
It just reminds us of all the other scenes in other plays that are better than this one within the same convention stream, which are also difficult to, morality plays are always quite difficult to sell, but they usually at least have some fun stuff in it, and something that lands. Whereas, I mean, Liza and I and Eric last night were reading the unjust usurped primacy of the Bishop of Rome.
Sounds more fun, to be honest.
Which weirdly was. I mean, I have to say, for all its length, and it was compendious, we only read 15% of the text in the same period of time that we read this entire play. It had great one-liners. It had character. It had a journey. It was too long, and it was, a bit preachy. But actually, it had a lot more going for it. I'm not usually this negative, but I have to say, it's this really did not land at all, and I'm struggling to find positives.
Don't rush back with this for a second.
I'm going to say we're not going to do a second take on this one, are we? We're really not.
I can't think of anything else to do with it.
Yeah.
We have already done the canonically perfect reading of it.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd say so.
One day it will be done, but yeah, it's going quite low down my list now. It's real. Unless you want to pay for it, he said to the audience out there. If you've get in touch, because you really need to bribe us to do this one. It's going to take a while.
Chocolate and alcohol.
Anyone got anything positive they want to try and add? Because we've been a bit negative.
Come on, Lynsey, go for it.
Lynsey.
I genuinely only just that I enjoyed reading Ignorance and Hypocrisy. I was coming to it cold, and I hadn't realized actually Ignorance is old and blind and goes and gets drunk in the pub and gets left there by what's his name, Doctrine. And I just kind of thought there's probably a lot of fun comedy to be had with the right casting of that role. Somebody who's sort of constantly walking into things on stage, or whatever, or mistaking one person for another. I mean, there's a lot of, it's probably not that politically correct, but there is probably a lot of fun to be had with that. And I enjoyed reading it. But Ignorance doesn't say very much, and that's maybe why I enjoyed reading it.
No, I mean, I was thinking that because it really is. A lot of the time it's a two-hander, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting done by two, and then we got two others who are sort of filling in the numbers a lot of the time. And I put in the chat, oh my God, everyone's on stage at the same time.
Yes.
We barely got above effectively a series of dialogues with a third person on stage happened a lot of the time, because that's basically what Ignorance did. Ignorance didn't really contribute. It was just Perverse Doctrine had a go at new custom, and Ignorance happened to still be there.
And then you get that rush of new characters at the end.
Yeah, tag teaming. It's like, I've got to go now because I must change my costume.
Exactly.
Oh,
Bit
so
too
now,
obvious.
wasn't it? I need to leave for a moment.
Yes.
I won't be long.
I'll be right back, yeah.
Spot the difference.
Yeah, just guard me pint, will you? I'll be back in a moment.
No, Rosewater, please, if it's going to be anything.
But it comes from the early 1570s. It's coming from a time when, there's all sorts of interesting pressures coming in to interlude playing and things, and there's so many plays that don't survive. It's a very sparse area of the sort of, you're looking at the number of plays that we've got here, and so one wonders about everything else, about what's going on here. But yeah, no wonder the interlude tradition died out. We didn't really have any choice. That was more governmental pressure, actually, but all sorts of things happened. I don't see that in the repertoire of the Leicester's Men. Any final thoughts from the room? Liza, got anything to throw in before we close the session?
Well, I certainly had more fun tonight than I thought I would have, although there were some lines early on where I feel like I failed to get the sense, so I apologize for that. But it was fun playing three such contrasting characters. I thought it was interesting that the prayer at the end, I'm used to prayers at the ends of morality plays going monarch, nobles, commons. And this one, it went in the reverse order and prayed for the people first, but I suppose that's so you can end with the queen. So, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, I mean, there was fun to be had here. You just had to look really hard for it.
Yes, maybe someone else can would find more out of it, and maybe we're just being terrible killjoys. Tom, any final thoughts?
At one stage, I thought there were fireworks, but they, were suddenly disappeared, and we went all moral. And as I say, I was desperate at the end for Perverse Doctrine just to be playing everybody along, and just at the very end just go, oh, sod off, and stick a fork up your backside type of thing.
That's the director's cut. It didn't make it. Lynsey, any final thought to throw in?
I think not much to add to what's already been said. There were one or two lines that I really liked, including "I will quickly fetch my fist from your ear," which I thought was a nice turn of phrase. And there were a few of those, but I think it may be going to the bottom of the priority list, this one.
Not quite to the very bottom, but it's not going high. It's not going high. Lynsey, would you put it above or below Patient Griselle?
Yeah. Not sure on that one.
Well, I think with Patient Griselle, you can sort of do a feminist version of it. Maybe, I mean, there's maybe a way to kind of spin it or do something sort of more radical with it. Whereas this, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
And in that, I'm referencing John Phillips' version, not the later one, which we have is as of yet not done. Greg, any final thoughts?
That's all I'll say to this one. Yeah. Just do it if you ever feel like you have to do a second look, just don't put me in on the night.
He's been here twice. 3 times is not a charm.
No, because I must admit, even though that was my first stab, excuse the pun at Perverse Doctrine, I cannot see where I'd go any further with that. I might play with disguise more, and that's about all. I will thank you, Helen, for the hat if you're watching this at any point.
And on that note, I think it's time to close this session. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Be whipped for thy greedy suggestion.